Hey guys, it's me. Apparently I am going live on YouTube tonight because I have created your videos several times and it has not recorded. So we're just going to do this the old-fashioned way. And tonight you're going to get me on my phone and we're going to just try to go as quick as possible. So today we started looking at the location on the coordinate graphs. And when we look at the locations on the coordinate graph, we learned that every point has an exact location. Now the graphs that we've been working with have fractions on them. Hi Nevaeh! The graphs that we've been working with have fractions on them, and so just to keep this simple, I went with just single digits and whole numbers on our line. So what I'm going to do really quick is just kind of review what we went over today. And so I've labeled these with letters. These are in no particular order. I could name this as A, B, C, or D, or I could change this to the library and Walmart. It doesn't really matter. They aren't in any particular order. And so when I'm talking about mapping their locations and giving the exact locations and what we're going to get into, please know that it doesn't matter where they are as far as their letters are. You don't have to go in alphabetical order or anything crazy like that. It is just about looking at their locations. So I went ahead, and in my other video that I made, I went ahead and I I wrote the coordinates on the graph. So point A is located on the x-axis at point 5, and it's located on the y-axis at point 2. So its location is 5 and 2. And I did that with all of those. Does anybody have any questions about that? Because I feel like that part you guys were rocking out today. I will tell you that the exit slips that I've graded so far on Class Kick today look awesome. Those of you who had your hand up for some questions still, I will get back to that tonight. And so hopefully by the time you come to class tomorrow, you will have a 3 out of 3 on that paper. So, what we're going to talk about today is we're just going to add on to what we've already learned. So sometimes when you see these coordinate graphs, it's going to ask you to start doing something with the information. So this part down here is pretty easy, right? Like we were having you guys do those mystery sheets at Christmas and Thanksgiving without any instruction other than saying, oh yeah, that's X, that's Y, you put a dot. So obviously that's not as far as we're going to go with this information. That was just the warm-up. So today we're going to talk about the distance between 2 points. Okay? And what I mean by that is if I'm looking at this graph, it might say, what is the distance between point A and point D? What is the distance between point A and point B? And while that sounds silly because we're just looking at some numbers on the graph, you're going to see in just a few moments that when we're talking about things, I know, are you proud of me? I'm really proud of myself, Carter. Thanks for tuning in. Sorry if it's shaky. I'm not used to talking and holding my phone still. So anyway, when we're talking about locations later on, it will, you guys are cracking me up and distracting me. Okay. It'll make more sense. So for right now, I've just drawn these letters. So for instance, I want you to look at point A and point D. Now visually, I can look at that and I can say, oh, okay, well my number line's just going by 1. My x-axis is just one whole number. And so I can say, well, obviously, it's all right, don't worry about it, Carter. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, there's 4 spaces between A and D, and those are called units. Those are called units. And those are really easy right now because that we just have those whole numbers. But what happens when we get into fractions or we get into something that's a little bit more difficult and it's not as easy just to count those lines? And so what we're going to do today is I'm going to teach you just a super quick strategy, and I think that you will find it's really easy. So here, if I'm trying to find the distance between point A and D, I've gone and listed their coordinates, 5, 2, and 1, 2. Now visually, I can see they're on the same line. Their y coordinates are the same. They're both 2. there is nothing between, there's no difference between those. What I'm looking for is how many places over, how many units over is D from A. And so I go to A and I go to D. And I notice right away that their X coordinates are different. So I can, what do you think I might do with them? I'll give you a minute. Type it in. What am I going to do? You already know the answer because you saw me count it. What might I do between 5 with that 5 and 1 to find the distance between them? That's true, Carter. Very good. So what am I going to do with those two numbers? All right, well, I'm going to move on, and I'm sure somebody's going to chime in here in just a second. I'm going to subtract because I'm trying to find the distance between two numbers. Anytime you're looking between two things, you're always going to subtract because that just kind of tells you the distance between them. So I looked, and I could visually see on this one that the distance was 1, 2, 3, 4. And so here, when I subtract, doesn't matter, that's what I was saying earlier about the alphabetical order. It doesn't matter if the A's on top or how I'm taking, you know, A away from D or D away from A. It's just simple subtraction. If I have 1 marker, I can't take 5 away. If I have 5 markers, I can take 1 away. So it's just a matter of lining it up and doing those basic operations. And so 5 take away 1 is 4 units. And so then I did another one. I wanted to find the distance between A and B. So here is A's location, and here is B's location. Obviously, they're on the same x-axis. They're both on 5. The question was just, what would I do with these two numbers that are different to find the distance between them? So if I wanted to find the difference between A and B, how many units are between A and B, I would list their coordinates. They're on the same x-axis, so there's nothing I'm going to do with those two numbers, but I am going to look here. So this is where A does not have to come before B. That doesn't matter. I can either have 2 and take away 8, which if I only have 2 fingers, you can't have 8, or I can have 8 take away 2, and that's what makes sense. So between A and B, there are 6 units. So 1, good job, Carter, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay? So it's really important to know what your units are. Today, we were working with units that were 1/2 inch. We were working with units that were fifths. So that's the very first thing that you have to be able to do is you have to be able to look between your whole numbers, just like on a ruler, and count to figure out what fraction you're going to be working with. So you guys are getting really good at that. I'm really impressed with you. So let's take a look at, and I'm sorry, I only had 1 copy of this, and I wrote in permanent marker, so it's already filled out. So I'll just try to cover it the best I can. All right, so this is my garden, all right? And I went ahead, and the first thing that I did was I listed out the coordinates of all the things that I planted. So you might really truly do this in real life because I don't know if you've planted a garden or not, but when you plant a garden and that stuff starts coming up and you go out to weed the garden, you can't tell what is a tomato plant and what is a weed. So I actually truly know people who really do things like this where they make a grid and write down the things that they've planted. So what I did was I went ahead and I found the location for each of these on the grid. So the tomatoes were at an X3 and a Y2. Cucumbers were at a X of 7 and a Y of 2. And so I listed all of those out. And this little page here has my reminder that you can check your answer by finding the differences between the X coordinates. So the first thing asks me, how many units are between the tomatoes and peppers? Sorry, I know that's so shaky. So if I'm looking here at the tomatoes and the peppers, I can, because this is just whole numbers, I can just kind of count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units, okay, is what I see. But I want to double check because you should check your answer by finding the difference in the X coordinates. Remember, Difference doesn't mean how are they different. Difference means subtraction. All right, good job, Carter. So here I listed the tomatoes and the peppers, 3, 2, and 3, 7. The 3's are the same. I'm not going to do anything with them. 7 take away 2 is 5. So Nevaeh, I'm just looking at how many spaces are between, what is it? Oh, the tomatoes and the peppers. How many boxes, really? But we're just calling them units. And since they're on the same x-axis, there's no difference there, but there's 5 units on the y-axis that they're different from. So what if I am looking at the tomatoes and the cucumbers? So here's my tomatoes, 3, 2. My cucumbers is 7, 2. So what would be the difference in the units between my cucumbers and my tomatoes? They're on the same y-axis, so there's not a difference there. But on the x-axis, I have a difference. So what would be the distance between? Yes, 4 units. Good. Because 7 take away 3 equals 4. Awesome. All right, what about the cucumbers and the string beans? So here's my cucumbers. They're at 7, 2. And my string beans are at 7, 5. So how many units, or what's the distance between the string beans and the cucumbers? 7, 2 and 7, 5. The x-axis is the same, so I'm not going to do anything with them. 5 take away 2, yes, Carter, is 3 units. The distance between the cucumbers and the string beans, 3 units. And then the distance between the string beans and the eggplants. Here's my string beans. Here's my eggplants. So that actually says egg. I don't know why it kind of looks like frog, but it's egg. So my string beans are at 7, 5, and my eggplants are at 1, 5. My y-axes are the same. I'm not going to do anything with them, but what is the distance in units between my string beans and my eggplants? Got my x-axis is the difference. So I'm going to take the bigger number, subtract the small, and so I get 7 take away 1 is 6. So from string beans to eggplants, it's 6 units. Good job. All right. So this here is a new one, and this is a class map. And this question is actually a multiple choice. So I'm not going to show you the answer because I already have it circled. Ha ha. But over here, this time they've switched it on us, and they're telling us to look for things that are units away. So for example, the first one says, whose desk is whose desk is 2 units from Marco's desk? So you can see here that Marco's desk is right here. Marco's desk is at 4 and 8. So I've got him over here. So I started going next door and kind of looking. So I went down to Letitia, and Letitia's desk is located at 4 and 3. They're on the same x-axis. I'm not going to do anything. 8 take away 3 is 5. So it can't be Letitia because I'm looking for somebody whose desk is 2 away. So let's see. Thank you, Ava. Welcome. Yes, Nevaeh, it's Valerie. Because Marco is at 4, 8 and Valerie is at 6, 8. The 8s are both in the y-axis and they're the same. There's no difference. So I look at the x-axis. I have 6, take away 4, and that gives me 2. So Valerie is 2 units away from Marco. Now, what about Kayla and Jamie? How far away are they from each other? So I've got Kayla is down here. Okay, Kayla is here at 7, 1. 7 on the X, 1 on the Y. And Jamie is on up a little bit more. He's also at 7, 8. So what would be the distance between Jamie and Kayla? We'll look closely. 7, 6 and 7, 1. Seven, 6 and 7, 1. So the 7s are the same. So you're going to use 6, take away 1. So that would be 5. Yes, Ava, you subtract. So we're looking for, anytime you see the word difference, it means subtract. So we're looking for the distance between them. So 6 take away 1 equals 5. Very good. Okay, so let me flip you back around. All right, so tonight, that's all we're going to do with that. And tomorrow when you come in, I'll have a sheet for you where you're going to practice those same skills. And then if we come in and we get everything done that we need to get done, you will get to play a battleship game. Not with the real ships and the pegs and everything. That's way too long and messy. But just with a piece of paper and, thanks Carter, just with a piece of paper, and you'll get to do some battleship drawings. I have gone on Class Kick. I had a meeting till about 4-ish. Well, does it not record? If it's live, can you come back and watch it later? I hope so. If not, they're out of luck. Yeah. So we'll see. Oh man. Okay, well, then they missed out. And you just got the special experience of having me at 5 o'clock on Wednesday. Okay, thank you, Carter. That makes me feel better. So tomorrow we'll hopefully get to play Battleship. I went on Class Kick, and if you had your paper, your hand up for your paper to be checked, then I checked your paper already. And if you had your hand up for a question, I haven't quite gotten to those yet. That wasn't as easy for me to do while I was in my meeting, and I was supposed to be paying attention. But I will get to that in just a little bit. So hopefully they look great. You guys did a really good job with that, and I'll put an exit ticket on for tomorrow. And so if you want to go ahead and work on that, you can too. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys tomorrow, okay? Have a good night.